because of how Jamaica was forged as a nation, and the fact that we're still young, we're what, 62? We're not 62 yet. 62 in August.
We're not, yeah,
Yeah, we're
62 in
So we're in our
August.
62nd year. Yeah, yeah. I think it's 62 already. 62 in August. Um, we're still young. A majority, I've said in this space before, that our political representatives held a pride of place, and perhaps in some measures still do, in terms of the hierarchy in society. And they have to, because of the structure, the way the society is structured with the legislature and everything else. But there was a time, Tana, when, as a little girl in your community, you would have met your first individual with the title doctor in the form of a politician. So, say Dr. John Brown. And you would say, well, the first day you met somebody who was a doctor, a PhD doctor. Well, if you didn't have cause to go to the hospital or the doctor as a child, you would meet your doctor, the MP. The first day you'd meet a lawyer was in the form of your MP as well. So, they had a certain influence. And because of the influence, people took as gospel what the leaders said. And not just the political leaders, but, man and woman in certain organizations. You accord them respect because of the position they held. And so because of this position that they hold and the respect that you give to them, they influenced your way of thinking. Now that has served the country well, but in large measure, it has also affected how this country sees itself. And what I mean specifically is people are pushed into thinking the way that the people they've traditionally respected counsel them to think. In Jamaica, what we've seen over time is not by accident, it's a systematic dumbing down of the people. If you notice our election campaigns, and when man or woman, regardless of which political party, is on the hustings, they want the crowd to react. They want to get the cheers. And so they draw for the base form of communication, which is to boil everything down to, is it putting money in your pocket? In other words, don't listen to what they're saying about balance of payments. Don't listen to what they're talking about fiscal accounts and the steadiness of that, because that can't yam. Don't listen to what they're talking about constitutional reform, because constitutional reform can't yam. And so, a large percentage of the population, and large doesn't have to be because it is bigger than any other, but it can be large because its participation in a particular process is louder than other groups. And so, when they speak to this large group and boil everything down to, if it can't yam, it don't make sense, they know that by doing this, they keep the people on the proverbial hook. They keep them eating out of their hands. But what they don't know is that by doing this, they are weakening the process that they intend to take stewardship of. And then they end up making legislation and trying to structure a society for the dunces that they create through the people. I know it sounds away, but it's true. Here's what I mean. This process of constitutional reform, it is so important, but for a large part of this process, because the people have been dumbed down so much, and the people who listen to them every week, everywhere, travel with them around the island and are active and vocal, more active, more vocal than the rest of you who are busy with your other endeavors. The process can't attract the critical kind of support needed to convince you that this is a we are all in this together Jamaica project. So, civil society and politicians, depending on their bent and their hue, criticize the members of the Constitutional Reform Committee and say that you can't have 15 people making the decision. You need more consensus. You need broader consensus. You need to have more people participating in the process, and the report is not legitimate because it's not reflecting the will of the people. So these individual groups, and I heard Kevin O'Brien Chang blasting some of them last week, as he should have. These people who participate in the dumbing down of the people systematically, and they live by the adage that if the people are dunce and they are smart, then they'll protect their position. So that's how they look at it. They're not interested in anybody rising to their level intellectually, because then again, they won't be special. If they have 10 people in the room and they're the smartest one, they like that, because it means that there are 9 people who will always look to them. They don't want 9 people to be at the level that they are, because if everybody's smart, them now go special. Right? Simple as that. So they, through their work in dumbing down the people, then wonder why the same dumb people are not cottoning on to this process of constitutional reform. They wonder why the town hall meetings have the same 10 faces there all the time. The same people, when the floor is open for questions, are the same people going off on a rant, some people at various stages of mental capacity who just come to a gathering to rant about some random issue or the other, to cuss some politician that they feel away about for a long time. And then they say, oh, but the process is undermined because the people are not participating. And then these same people in these same groups, when they have their events, nobody no come. So they who are not expert in drawing a crowd to their core activity criticizes the constitutional reform process because it doesn't attract a large crowd to these events. But how can it attract a large crowd when you, by your work over time, have dumbed down the people to believe that nothing that doesn't put money directly into their pocket, nothing that doesn't give them something we can name, it don't make sense. And I find increasingly, maybe I'm getting old, finally, that there's so much that I cuss media for. When the charlatans in politics and the charlatans in civil society embark on the campaign to dumb down and to keep dunce, we should push back. That is what our role is in this chair. We are the real checks and balances. We are the real backstop that the people have. Not madam in the pantsuit or Mr. Man in the necktie, or that man who come together and call himself one alliance. Not that man who call himself a committee of this. And I remind the people, a group of vultures resting on the ground or in a tree is called a committee. Yeah? Google it if you think I may tell. So I'm saying an important issue such as this suffers, and the people who offer themselves to drive the process, they get a bad rap. Because those who are not part of the process criticize them for the work they do. Criticize the fact that there is not broad participation around it, when they themselves have created the conditions that cause people to ignore such a thing as the reform of the constitution of their country, because I tell them it's a constitutional reform and things like it can't yam. I fret daily about the future of this country, what the next generation is going to be like, how they're going to think, how they're going to reason, because we have too many intellectually dishonest people in this country. And journalism has to take a share of the blame because we're too coward in this profession. We're too cowardly. We are cowards. It's like we're afraid to make mouth meet with certain people. Well, you know I'm not afraid. You know I'm here for the fight. It's a fight I relish. Too many insignificant men and women with loaded agendas who are on a mission to tilt this country a certain way and to keep it there. And then put on a frock and a wig and masquerade as something else. And talk about integrity and accountability. Let a committee do it. Drunker business.